Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be looking at kind of a unusual subject, but one that's kind of interesting to me anyway. It's what happens to trees when they die, how do animals use them, what, how do they get processed back into soil, that sort of thing, and all the little things that happen there. So we're just kind of in an average little patch of forest here, and we have just wanted to kind of show this aspen that's died. And right up at the very top, we have a little hole. It's kind of a perfectly circular hole, and it's a little nest that was carved out by downy woodpeckers. And if I'm quiet here for a second, we can probably hear, it's hard to say if the camera will or the phone will catch it, but we can hear the chicks asking for food and whatnot. But just kind of a really neat way to look at this is a tree that was that had just fallen naturally. It has, like, you can see there's some fungus on it and that sort of thing. It's time to go, and because it's left standing here, we have a family of woodpeckers that is able to raise chicks here, and those woodpeckers go on to eat all sorts of things that are harmful to trees, like spruce budworm and caterpillars and beetles and all sorts of stuff. So it really is a good thing for the forest to have these kind of snags, dead trees that are left standing. You can see over here we have the rest of the tree, which will eventually rot and provide food and habitat for all sorts of other creatures. It's off the ground, so it'll take a little longer here. But when they're touching the ground, the extra moisture just accelerates how they're processed. This is an area where it's a little bit drier under the trees. You can see that some of the logs under here have completely lost all their adhesion, all the lignins in the wood and everything else. Fungus takes that and feeds on that, leaves a little bit of the cellulose left over. Even this cut aspen here, the bark is still intact, but the inside completely soft. Habitat for beetles and worms and all sorts of things. So all these things are really a good thing for the forest to have in place. But some of these things that are under your feet, you never really notice until you see things like these woodpeckers. If we're lucky, we'll see one of the parents come and feed them. I'll try to get a video of that. But just, in an area where this is clear cut, or where all dead wood is removed for fear of fire or that type of thing, this wouldn't be able to happen. I don't think that the aspen here is particularly potent fire hazard. Maybe some of the other trees in the area are, but something like this isn't. So anyway, we're gonna kind of take a look around, see what we can find out, and some of the the woody debris that's left over. Oh, there is one of the parents there. It'll visit the nest there, and hopefully give the baby something to eat, and off it'll go again. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, I just hope to kind of accomplish, I guess, spreading the word that things like this matter. It may not seem like it matters, but when you have a full family of woodpeckers like this, all now going to be, in the next few months, out feeding and eating insects that could potentially harm some of the healthy trees in the area. It all really does matter. So we'll take a look around some other areas, and before we do though, I'll try to get a little bit closer to these guys here. Where are we? So anyway, yeah, so we'll take a look around and see what we can find. Here we have a bit of a different scenario. This is a couple of stumps, so not exactly leaving trees kind of on their own after they die, but these are a couple of stumps. I don't know why they were cut, but here they are, and they were left, and this is near kind of a little temporary creek, and I just wanted to show how much kind of, or the kind of variety of things that grow in these areas. It's a little bit wet here. You can see on the very top we have some debris here that's left from, it's like pine cone scales from the lodgepole pines in the area that the squirrels bring over, and they strip them down and I guess get the seeds out and leave all the rest here. So it kind of gathers moisture and it'll grow moss over it eventually and that type of thing, but it's all kind of part of it. And you can see these lichen down the side, some moss. Right in the center here we have a mountain hemlock, which is pretty unusual in this area, being Alberta. But we're not that far from where they do grow, I guess, commonly. But more commonly here, we have white spruce saplings growing in the moss. I'll show a little bit closer here on one of the roots. So yeah, some white spruce. This was a white spruce tree, by the way. But it's kind of amazing the variety of liverworts, types of moss, that type of thing, all over. So even if the full tree isn't here, it's there's a benefit to leaving stumps in some cases. If an area is logged, maybe, I think my understanding is that it kind of depends on what you want it to be afterwards, whether you remove the stumps and all the slash and all that type of thing. If you want it to be a grassland for grazing, that's what I would do. But if you wanted forest to regrow, in my opinion, having these stumps here, catching, debris and leaves and things in the wind, seed, like, I mean, this mountain hemlock, likely, a bird or something like that dropped that off here, and it was able to grow in the leaves and debris. So there are a lot of kind of benefits to that. So and beside it, I guess here we have kind of the opposite. So this area, I should note, is on my property. I have a small acreage with some forest. So this is a tree that fell in a large windstorm we had about 4 years ago. So I took the branches off because I didn't want a fire hazard. But my plan is to leave this. It's quite a large tree. It was well over 100 feet tall. It kind of had a twin there that's still standing. Let's look up at that one. There were two very big trees sitting here, and unfortunately this one snapped. And it fell in the windstorm. And my plan is just to let it kind of deteriorate naturally, see how long it takes, see what happens. So it was about 4 years ago. Still has all the bark on it. Still fairly well attached. So I just kind of wanted to do a bit of an experiment just to see how long does it take to just start growing moss and start doing things like that. With a spruce, I think it takes a little longer. They have a lot of resin, a lot of sap, that type of thing. It would happen a lot faster in a aspen or a poplar or something like that. So I think that this one has just had all the resin dry out. It's probably 30 inches in diameter at the bottom, so it's quite big. It's going to take a long time to get all that stuff out, and then I think we'll start to see the fungus and all that sort of stuff go. So anyway, just kind of a little experiment that I'm doing here. Here's an example of a white spruce that I'm kind of just leaving to do its thing here. This one is about 90 feet tall and quite large at the base, maybe 24, 26 inches, something like that. But it's died probably in the last, 7-8 years. Still has all its branches, no needles. It's in an area that if it falls, it'll just fall into trees. So that's why I'm just kind of leaving it just to see what happens here. I'll try to get a little closer, but it's in a bit of a cow parsnip patch here, and there's a creek on the other side. But the bark is just starting to peel off. There's all sorts of things living in there underneath the bark. Also, there's a lot of woodpeckers digging around in there, that type of thing. So just kind of leaving it as a bit of an experiment here. And I'll try to get up a little closer and we can see some of the holes that are excavated and the things that are kind of eating it here. Okay, we're right up to the side here of that large dead standing spruce tree, and you can see there's wood chips and things like that here. We've got the bark starting to peel off, fungus and things growing under it. Parts of the bark have been chipped off by various woodpeckers and things like that. There's little holes and things all over the place. We can see little holes like this from insect larvae, and that's what the woodpeckers are after. Here's some bigger excavations from woodpeckers. And actually, this one's interesting. You can kind of see how some sort of large, I don't know if it was a worm or a beetle larva or something like that, was in there and pulled out by the woodpecker. So yeah, just something like this. It doesn't look like much from far away, but when you come up close, there's a lot to it. There's a lot going on. I think I heard somewhere that the life of a tree starts when it dies, kind of thing, something like that. And you can kind of see why. But these are all fairly new, right? I mean, I believe the branches will start to fall off on this one, and in windstorms and things like that. And then eventually it'll fall over, whether it rots from the bottom or breaks off at the top, something like that. So anyway, just interesting to see kind of from the start to where things really start to take on a new life here. So all right, so here's a soon to be dead snag. You can see it's a poplar, balsam poplar, and it's dead at the top, but still a fair bit of leaf cover and things like that midway and lower down. But what I wanted to show you is here at the bottom, another kind of trunk of the poplar fell. You can see it right here. My dogs are running around there, don't mind them. But yeah, so it fell, and you can see it's quite rotted there. But in here, actually we have something growing in there. But further down, you can actually poke right through. So this tree is completely rotten inside, and it's only a matter of time before either the whole thing falls over or
the top breaks or something like that. So this will become a snag in the yard here. I'll probably leave it just because it's not gonna fall on anything. So kind of see what happens with this one as well. And here's a poplar that is standing, broken at the top, and you can see there's a lot of big holes in there. So something was living in there and digging around, or maybe had a nest or that type of thing. The holes are probably, the top ones, well over a foot at its biggest, opening there. So they're pretty big. So more than just a woodpecker, I would say. I don't know what's really been digging in there, but whatever it is, it's something that's making a living inside a dead tree, which is kind of neat to see. Here's something that I often do is if a tree has to come down, or does come down and needs to be cut, sometimes if I'm not going to use the wood, this is poplar. I tend not to burn poplar very much as firewood, but I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, I guess. But anyway, I usually don't. But I'll pile it up, let mice and voles and things like that kind of use it as habitat, beetles, whatever. You'll see like a lot of fungus and mold and things like that are also living in here. The fungus attacks all the logs essentially, even when they're off the ground like this, and basically leaves them with nothing left. And you can see some of the remnants there from last year. But yeah, I often do that. If I'm not going to use it, I'll just kind of leave it, right? And you can see a few more here and a few more down here that were stacked up a few years back. This is before my time. These are all moss covered, and they'll just turn back into soil in the not too distant future. So may as well leave it. One interesting thing is kind of a good example. So this is a poplar, and the bark of the poplar is much more rot resistant than the internal wood. So here is kind of a large shard of bark that's standing here. Really, it's solid, and the rest of the log, the entire thing, is soft, wet, and is just about to turn to dust essentially. But this bark, it's going to last a little longer. So that I always find interesting, that how resilient that outer layer is of especially poplars, I notice. Here's an example of a tree that is kind of it's a snag that's up into kind of a mess of trees here. And this really is a fire hazard here. So I need to do some trimming in here to limit that. But I'm tempted to kind of leave this poplar here that fell this way, and then the other one here just over the weekend here, it dropped due to a heavy rainstorm and kind of smashed over top of it and left piles of bark on the ground, and everything. Is just kind of a violent thing, but it's kind of neat. It tells a bit of a story. So for whatever reason, I may leave these poplar here, but I'll definitely do some trimming here, because sometimes there is certainly too much, and these dead branches of the spruce here low to the ground, that's definitely a ladder fuel. So I don't want to really leave that for long, but I may just leave this poplar, because the poplar's not terribly flammable compared to the spruce and pine. So I'll probably clean up, but leave all this kind of stuff here. Just I don't know, I find it interesting. So, but yeah, this bark is this tree has been dead a while, and the bark is hanging off of it. So I assume that it's not going to last that much longer sitting here. It'll break and do its thing here. All right, one more example of kind of the end of the road once a tree falls here. So lichen, moss, grass growing, horsetails, all these types of things. The log is full of holes, and essentially going back to soil. So, and at the end there, you can barely tell it's there. So, just fascinating, the amount of things growing. You can see these lichens a little bit different than we've seen so far in the video. Different mosses, you know. This is in Alberta, so we certainly do not have a wide variety, I would say, of mosses and lichens compared to British Columbia or you know, eastern forests and those types of things. So, but I still find it fascinating. It is, you know, quite a variety of things that do grow here, and the coastal and eastern forest is even more fascinating that way. So, actually, I just noticed this, holding this together, is just the bark. So the wood underneath is pretty much gone. So another example of that resilience of the poplar bark. One more example on a stump here. So as you can see, it's a stump. We're on the edge of a bit of a wet area, so plenty of moisture here, and it has these bracket fungus here all on the side. So hadn't seen that yet in the video here. Some different kinds of lichens in here too, horsetails and everything growing on it. But yeah, pretty interesting. Yet another example of the things that break down plant material when it dies here. Okay, here's a good example of a log that's been sitting here for quite a few years. Don't even know what kind it is, to be honest. Essentially, it's on this far end here, it's turned right back into soil. So, and this stuff right here with the moss growing on it, if you step on it, it pretty much turns to nothing. So it's acting as a nurse log here. We have white spruce seedlings, just wherever they can get a foothold, I guess. It's not quite as deteriorated on this end, but this is kind of the other end of the spectrum, right? Once those logs fall, it takes many years, many things to break them down. But when they do, this is the nutrients back into the soil, right? So just another reason why, at least where I have control over it, I prefer to leave what they call coarse woody debris on the forest floor, you know, keeping in mind potential fire dangers and things. However, what my thought is logs like this that are sitting on the ground are going to hold a lot of moisture compared to something in the air. So I'll try to bring things down onto the ground. So yeah, so it's basically, this is the other end of the circle, and just there's so many things that rely on, from the snags that are up in the trees, you know, and the birds and things like that that are using them, all the way down to the little insects and fungi and all these things that are on the ground. You know, once it hits the ground, they really start to take off. There's you know, ones like this that aren't quite touching the ground, it'll last a little while, but once this is on the ground fully, it's not going to last more than, you know, 4 or 5 years, I think, out of here. So yeah, just really interesting. There's also some interesting things like how these things are dying. In a relatively healthy forest, you're still going to get some that die, and the next thing that we are going to take a look at is a newly dead tree, and there's some clues as to what killed it on it. So let's go take a look. All right, so this is the tree that I was saying had recently died, and there was a clue to what kind of was the cause. So just this fall, last fall, it kind of lost its needles. It looked like a healthy tree up until that point. So I was a little bit, you know, wondering, I guess, what's the factors that cause that. And so in the spring here, it kind of started, this fungi started popping out all up the trunk, and you can see these little kind of puffy, leathery, fruiting bodies, I guess they are. So this tree clearly has this this fungal kind of system running through it, and all up the trunk you can see these things. So my assumption is this, not knowing what type of fungus this is what killed this tree. So hopefully it doesn't kind of continue and kill some of its neighbors. There's some pretty big trees right next to it. So I'm hoping that it's an isolated incident, and maybe the fungus just took advantage of a weakness or something like that. But also, unfortunately, this one I'll have to take down. It's within striking distance of my garage, so, and it's got a lot of dead branches that I think could be a bit of a fire hazard here. So I'll take this one down, probably burn it as firewood. Hopefully I'm not spreading around whatever this this fungus is here that's clearly a part of the death of this thing. So anyway, I just found that kind of interesting. Yeah, I guess I'll end the video there, and I just kind of want to bring across the message that a dead tree isn't just a dead tree. It becomes habitat for birds, insects. You know, I've even heard bats can roost in behind the bark. I haven't seen it myself, but I've heard that. So all these things that are beneficial in a forest, you know, the birds are eating insects, the bats are eating insects, all those types of things. They need these dead trees. And I think it's a shame to just randomly clear everything out. I mean, you know, it is what it is. If somebody owns a plot of land and they can manage it however they like, this is how I choose to do it, to try to recreate a little bit of kind of a mature old growth type forest, even if it is small and you know, just on my property. It's what I can do to maximize the things that are able to live here, and that's what I'm after. So anyway, thanks for watching, and until the next time.